and today I'm going
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned.
Snapchat, Intel, Twilio, Tesla, and even Robin the Hood have all had layoffs in 2022 or are expected to do so. Most of the big tech companies have announced hiring freezes. Even Amazon, which is a company that pretty much never stops hiring, has announced a partial hiring freeze. And things over at Meta are even worse. Internship offers have been rescinded, and Mark has told employees that they need to, quote, turn up the heat. And yes, even those of us at Google have had to experience some turbulence. I'm sure you've heard recently that Stadia was canceled. Not a big surprise there. Even though that doesn't mean the people working on Stadia are getting laid off, this is all still very anxiety-inducing. So the question is, how do we as tech workers navigate this very uncertain environment? Whether you already have a job and you're concerned about losing it, or even worse, you're just getting started and looking for a job and worried about all these hiring freezes going on. And in my case, the concerning question is, are Google engineers going to get laid? off? Well, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that question. And the reality is that no one can give you a straight answer. No one can predict what's going to happen in the future. That's probably not the answer that you wanted to hear if you were recently laid off or you recently graduated and you're not able to find a job. Trust me, I get that. I was in a very similar position a few years ago. But if there's one tip that I could give you, just one single tip, it would be do not be short-sighted. Please have a long-term mindset. There's a famous proverb that slow and steady wins the race, and this is really my life's philosophy. When there's blood in the streets and people are losing their minds is when fortunes are made. Do not lose sight of your long-term goal. Let me give you a quick history lesson. In the US, there was an event called the Panics of 1873. Markets were crashing, people were losing their jobs, industries were crumbling, and people were afraid of what the future would hold. But there was one person named John D. Rockefeller. He was in the business of oil, and he saw that all of his competitors were afraid and willing to sell their businesses for a very low price, and he took the first chance that he got. He consolidated nearly the entire oil industry in the US, and eventually everyone emerged from the market crash, and Rockefeller was left there standing with 1% of the entire US wealth in his hand. Adjusted for inflation, Rockefeller's peak wealth was over $400 billion. He's the reason that we have monopoly laws in the US today. Now, I will say he wasn't the nicest or most ethical person in the world, but the point I'm trying to make here is tech is not going away. You did not choose a bad career path. It seems right now that tech is getting hit worse than most industries. And it's true, there probably are some hard times coming and we may have to tighten our belts a little bit, but not forever. It's true, some companies may not survive this recession, but there are plenty of technical problems left to be solved. Your skills are not becoming deprecated. And the titans of today may not be the titans of tomorrow. Tech giants have plenty of cracks in their armor, and I'm sure you know the bigger they are, the harder they fall. There will be a startup in the near future that solves problems that no one can solve today, and that company will eclipse all of the tech giants of today. Now let me be a little more specific and share my story. A couple of years ago when I started the channel, I was at rock bottom. I wanted to give up. I had just graduated with a degree in computer science, and this was near the beginning of the pandemic, and I just could not find a job. I honestly thought I was too dumb to be sweet. I legitimately applied to warehouse worker positions, but since this was the beginning of the pandemic, I couldn't get those jobs either. I just felt like a complete failure. So then I started the YouTube channel, and I decided I wanted to see how far I could go. Almost every single day for an entire year, I would study coding interview questions on the channel. I would make explanations, I would explain my thought process, and I did this consistently. I honestly didn't know how long it was going to take, but I knew that I'm a reasonably smart person. If I work reasonably hard, I will build up a skill set, and eventually the day is going to come where companies are going to be hiring again. The pandemic is not going to last forever. Now, it turned out that I actually ended up getting a job even sooner than I expected. About a year after I started the channel, I was able to get a job at Google. And somehow it's turned out that this channel has helped thousands and thousands of people land jobs. And ever since then, life has just felt like a complete dream. I can't believe how privileged I am every single day that I wake up. And so my advice to you is whatever your goals are, do not lose sight of them. Do not be distracted by every news headline and article. The skills that you can build right now during these uncertain times will be the ones that can help carry you through the rest of your life. There is a method to all this madness. The investments that you make today will pay dividends tomorrow, and there's no better investment than yourself. I can't tell you how long these tough times are gonna last, but I can tell you that hard work and talent cannot be denied for long. Eventually, the cream rises to the top. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Oh god, I hope they never find out Google laid me off.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. been slain.
To be talking about America's obsession with prodigy, precociousness, and the idea of becoming a self-made million entrepreneur by the time you're 30. In our culture, it seems that there's this notion that the younger you are when you achieve something, the more impressive and worthy of praise you and or that accomplishment is. For example, every NBC sports video involving someone under 20 years old never fails to mention their age in the title. 14-year-old makes the Olympic trials finals with terrific performance. Russian 15-year-old wins gold in stunning Grand Prix debut. And then everyone else is just like an impressive athlete. Like, what is it about young people doing amazing things that makes it so marketable to the point where it's permeated our cultural fabric and our expectations for ourselves? Obviously, at the most basic level, it's the novelty aspect that makes it interesting. It's kind of like looking at people with unusual talents at a freak show, except it's a 17-year-old winning a Nobel Peace Prize, or a really talented 5-year-old singing on The Voice. Essentially, it's inspirational. It shows that you don't have to live that long to reach the peaks of human potential. Caroline Gregor of the Huffington Post notes, "When we're constantly being made aware of how young or old other people are, and marking our lives by the milestones of 25, 30, and so on, age becomes central to our identity. Obsession with youth also reflects and perpetuates a widespread societal fear of aging. Without a cultural ideal of old age, and even middle age, says psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, our civilization does not really harbor a concept of the whole of life. So in today's video, I want to explore the American obsession with youth, specifically high-achieving young people, and break it down into 3 different categories. First, the Wonderkins, then teens, and finally, young adults. Basically, all these age groups fall into people under 30 because in American culture, 30 is widely considered the end of one's youth, especially if you're a woman. Of course, kids and teens are considered young people, but as Americans have started to go to college at much higher rates and therefore get married and have kids later on in life, the decade of your 20s is considered very much youthful years, and popular media tends to paint turning 30 as the tipping point in adult life, where you have to get your shit together, and you no longer have the hope of being featured on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So I'm going to discuss topics concerning high-achieving youth within each of these age groups, and especially as we get to that last category, how these age-based measurements of success can be harmful and unrealistic. But first, I would like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. BetterHelp is a professional online counseling service that securely assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist who you can start talking to within 48 hours of signing up. It's not a crisis line nor self-help, but there is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network, which may not be available to you locally. BetterHelp is available worldwide, anyone can use it, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. I know that if therapy wasn't available to me online, I probably never would have tried it, and I had many an existential crisis about what I'm doing in life. I'm not doing enough, and kind of relating to this video. So I'm so glad that I did. You get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and they make it free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. So visit betterhelp.com/AmandaMariana to join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. That's BetterHelp to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/AmandaMariana. So I want to start with the elementary years, ages 3 to 12, the kids with unusual talents and achievements for their age. Child prodigies are usually viewed as freaks of nature. No one really expects any 12-year-old to get a perfect score on the SAT or tour with an internationally renowned orchestra. It kind of just happens. Because of how rare child prodigies are, I feel like their impact on culture is quite harmless and limited to viral videos and novelty, and Matilda, one of my favorite movies as a kid. These select few kids with talents and achievements at the adult level are viewed more as accidental products of nature because they have talents that don't seem teachable. Expectations for success at this stage are usually quite minimal because children don't have a ton of autonomy. While raising a child prodigy isn't something that most parents set out to do, in the past few decades there's been an increased emphasis on cultivating children's upbringing to increase chances for success later on in life, namely when it's time to apply to college. I recently saw a TikTok from a creator who was explaining how her mother was basically trying to prepare her to go to a top college since she was in elementary school. She explained that where she grew up there was kind of a highly competitive academic culture, so this kind of upbringing was not unusual. So this reminded me of a study I learned about last semester in a sociology class from sociologist Annette Leroux on how parenting styles and consequently children's outcome in life diverge based on class lines. Leroux and her team observed 12 families with 10-year-old children for about 3 weeks to study the different households and styles. Half were identified as working class and the other half middle class. She found that the middle class families practiced cultivated growth while the working class families practiced natural growth.
All the families loved their children, but they had different ideas about how they should best raise their children. And in working class families, the parents were often very clear and they would give directives. They would say, don't do that, cut it out. And that would be the end of the discussion. You almost never heard children do back talk with their parents or questioning their parents. By contrast, in middle class families, the children would talk a great deal, they would protest, they would whine, and they would badger their parents to get what they wanted.
Subsequently, Leroux coined the term concerted cultivation, which is the style of parenting that is commonly exhibited in middle class and upper class American families, and is also characterized by consciously developing language use and ability to interact with social institutions. A child that has been concertedly cultivated will often express greater social prowess in social situations involving formality or structure attributed to their increased experience and engagement in organized clubs, sports, musical groups, as well as increased experience with adults and power structure. While this pattern of child rearing holds no innate positive qualities, it has been linked to an increase in financial and academic success. I find the study to be really interesting because reflecting on my own life, I can see how some parts of my upbringing falls into that middle-class parenting style, and therefore has influenced my achievements later on in life. For example, in middle school, my mom advocated for me to be placed into a more advanced math track so I could take an AP math class in high school. I still had to take a test to skip a year of class, but I wouldn't have had the opportunity to pass it unless my mom got in contact with the teacher and asked her. There's nothing inherently better about this middle-class style of upbringing compared to natural growth in a vacuum, but in the context of the society we live in, concerted cultivation is rewarded. Another study study that reminded me of Thoreau's is found in a book called The Privileged Poor by Anthony Abraham Jack, who is a professor of education at Harvard University. Jack spent 2 years at the unnamed liberal arts college, where he interviewed hundreds of students and found an interesting divide between low-income students at the school. The first group he dubbed the titular privileged poor, and the second group, equally alliterative, the doubly disadvantaged. The privileged poor were a group of students from low-income families who had the opportunity to attend private high schools due to generous scholarships. Despite what they lacked financially, the privileged poor accrued the cultural capital that afforded them a similar sense of belonging found in their wealthy peers. In addition, they felt academically prepared due to the competitive nature of their high schools. While the doubly disadvantaged also came from poor families, they attended local underfunded public schools, and the elite college setting was a culture shock to say the least. The study was incredibly nuanced and uncovered the minutiae of an elite college's culture and how it could feel incredibly alienating and inaccessible to students who lacked certain cultural capital. As we know from Thoreau's study, a middle-class parenting style highly encourages children to advocate for themselves and think of themselves as equals to adults. Basically, it cultivates a sense of entitlement, which has a negative connotation, but I think it's one of the main features of this type of precocity that is valued and rewarded in American culture. I feel like the thing that successful young people have in common isn't always an unusually advanced skill or talent, especially as we're talking about successful young adults. One of the most important common threads is that these people feel like they have the right to people's time, attention, and money. So that was a long tangent on studies, and I'm trying not to stray too far from the point of this video, which is about tackling America's obsession with precocity, but I feel like this is where it stems from. If you are afforded a concerted cultivation upbringing, you're likely to have parents who really want you to go to college, perhaps a top college. And as we know, the acceptance rates at highly selective schools have plummeted in the past few decades, which I think has really influenced the rise of middle-class Americans valuing precocity and high achievements at young ages. This brings me to the next age group, the teens. I think the teen years are pretty interesting in comparison to the 12 and under age group because this is when people start to gain more autonomy and self-awareness. Creativity and innovation seem to be rewarded more than just excelling in a purely academic way. I remember when I started to buy into this youth achievement complex in like 8th grade, so I was a huge Lorde fan. I still love her music, but I was truly in my Stan era back then. I had an Instagram and Twitter fan account dedicated to her. It was a huge part of my life. One of the main things that really drew me to Lorde was the fact that what she sang about felt so relatable, but I was definitely shook when I realized she was only 16 when she released Pure Heroine, which of course included the now multi-platinum song Royals. I was probably 13 at the time, but knowing that she was so young and so talented and successful made me think, whoa, what am I gonna do that is nearly as impressive as this when I'm 16? In retrospect, I think this had more to do with the media coverage surrounding Lorde than my innate desire to make something like she made. I was not making music or drawings or anything really besides the occasional tweet that got 10 likes. A lot of the media coverage Lorde received early in her career centered around how young and precocious she was. She was a teen making music for other teens, of course, but it really held up in the eyes of adults and music critics and eventually the Recording Academy, hence her 2 Grammys. I feel like the way I interpreted media coverage about Lorde was that the most interesting thing about her wasn't even the quality of her music, which was amazing, but the fact that it was so amazing because of how young she was. It's like youth is seen as inherently virtuous, especially in the entertainment industry, rather than just being the number of years you've orbited the sun. This framing definitely influenced my view of myself. Teen Vogue came out with a 21 under 21 list in 2016, and I was like, damn, I only have 5 years left to do something worth writing about. However, in a shocking turn of events, I was featured in a Teen Vogue article last year at the ripe age of 21, so maybe my 16-year-old self kind of manifested that. Anyway, I'm all for youth empowerment and young people doing cool things. It's great, I'm not trying to be a hater, but I do think it's worth analyzing how we talk about these people and their achievements. So now I want to get into the meat and toxicity of this young people's achievement obsession, the young adult years. In this age group, the bootstraps narrative and the hustle culture aspect of it is most blatantly pervasive. Exceptional stories about boyish billionaires are touted as proof that with enough frugality and hard work, anyone can become rich and successful at 30. The source of our arbitrary age obsession can largely be attributed to the blank under blank lists. It started with Fortune magazine's 40 under 40 list, which from 1999 to 2003 just ranked people in order of wealth, which tells us a bit about where the values of these list makers lie, but in 2009, the list rebranded as a subjective ranking of power and influence. There's actually only 40 people on the Fortune list every year, but one of the most popular listicles today, Forbes 30 under 30, actually features 600 honorees in 20 different industries, ranging from social media to games, finance, consumer technology, and social impact. The 30 under 30 list was launched by Forbes editor Randall Lane in 2011, and since then, millennials have known no peace. The purpose of it? To answer important questions like, who is reinventing the world? Who should you hire today? Who will you be working for in 20 years? Who, in short, under the age of 30 matters. You know, to put it lightly. That's actually the first sentence in the 2011 article. The first 30 Under 30 featured the likes of prodigious fashion blogger Tavi Gevinson, a 28-year-old Donald Glover, and writer, actor, producer who became the poster child for nepotism, Lena Dunham. I just have to touch on Lena Dunham for a second because I've done a video on my channel about nepotism, and at the time, I actually really didn't know much about Dunham, so I didn't bring her up, but since then, I've watched Girls and her film Tiny Furniture, and have learned more about her career, so I've come to my own conclusion about her nepotism baby status. Early in her career, Lena Dunham was accused of benefiting from nepotism because both of her parents are somewhat well-known in the contemporary art world. Her mom, Laurie Simmons, is a photographer, and her father, Carol Dunham, a painter. This is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Lena Dunham has actually benefited from nepotism. I do think people have conflated her mom having a Wikipedia page and her parents' class position with nepotism, but the word that actually describes her situation best is just good old-fashioned privilege. I think you could say Lena Dunham benefited from nepotism if her parents worked in the same industry as her, which is Hollywood. I guess the fact that they're all in the general arts is where this confusion stems. But it's important to note that the film and TV industry is quite different from the contemporary art world. People resent Lena Dunham for many reasons, I know, but I think it just boils down to that a lot of her success comes down to the fact that she had the foresight to be born to wealthy parents. Wish I had thought of that. She attended private schools her whole life. Her parents seem to have paid for her college education and afforded her the luxury of not only financial but creative support. Her critically acclaimed feature film, Tiny Furniture, is what got her on HBO's radar, which led her to create and produce Girls. And you can't forget that Tiny Furniture was made for a mere $50,000, filmed in her parents' Tribeca loft, and stars her real mom and sister, who are not actors, so if anything, you could count those casting choices as nepotism. At the end of the day, she was lucky enough to have resources and privileges that allowed her to cultivate her creative skills and become successful at a young age. So I don't think it's nuanced enough to paint Dunham as a product of sheer nepotism. In fact, on these kind of blank under blank lists, upper class origins hers seem to be far from the exception, but cool. In a comically curmudgeonly piece for Slate, Simon Doonan declares that youth is the new global currency. He laments, this extreme privileging and overpraising of jeunesse is a new phenomenon. People think the 1960s was youth-obsessed. Not so. Back then, it was all about being an adult, a suave, sexy grown-up, with access to the finer things of life. And keep in mind, this article was written in 2011, before the Forbes 30 Under 30 list came out, and before we'd seen the worst of our romanticization of young success. He quips, the fetishizing and garlanding of youth has put the awards schedule into fast forward. At 22, you win most important fashion designer in history. By the time you hit 58, wah, people are giving you a standing ovation while wondering if you can still whittle on your own. And whose fault is that? You mark my words, those overachieving brats are to blame. Of course, this piece is meant to be taken with a grain of salt, but what makes it funny is that it's based in truth. Putting youth achievement on a pedestal takes a mental toll on everyone, from older generations to young people who feel like we haven't done enough, to the wonderkins who've aged out of the fluorescent limelight their adolescence afforded them. This brings me back to music I was obsessed with in middle school, Taylor Swift. In the recently re-released version of her 2012 album, Red, she included songs she wrote that didn't make the original cut. In one of my personal favorites, Nothing New, she reminisces on her fleeting youth, and keep in mind she wrote this song at 22. The bridge best encapsulates the theme. A Genius annotation reads, just like in The Lucky One, an earlier song on Red, Swift explores the concept of being an aging artist who sees younger artists take her place in these lines. While appreciating that they took inspiration from her work, she fears that as she gets older, younger artists will hold the title she had at their age. While the anxieties of an aging pop star seem far off from a plebeian plight, Swift's worries seem to be on the pulse of millennial angst. Maud Standish, a millennial trend researcher, put it perfectly. The allure of youth has culturally shifted from being about innocence to being about achievement. Many a millennial I know has spent a long night pondering their misspent youth after reading the horrible torture tool that is the 30 Under 30 article. This deep panic is different from what boomers experienced in their 20s, as many were capable of acquiring the trappings of adulthood early on. Thankfully for them, the economy made the dream of a house where they fight to defense a reality. Unfortunately, I don't think our cultural craze over youth achievement is going away anytime soon, but looking forward, it's important to contextualize young success stories, to acknowledge that no one has gotten to where they are in life simply by sheer willpower or work ethic. And secondly, if we continue to measure success in terms of how many accolades you can acquire by the time you're 30, we should at least ensure that people have equal access to opportunities to succeed. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. As usual, would love to hear your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
Inhibitor has been destroyed. Your turret has been destroyed.
закончились, вы все военные.
Никакого материального обеспечения, ровным счетом ничего.
What exactly is the thinking inside Russia as dissent and defeats mount?
Putin's army, once feared, now in disarray.
In Siberia, another man shot a recruitment officer point blank.
They recruit actually everybody. Old people, sick people, people without any military experience.
Никакой медкомиссии не было нигде, блядь. Здесь психически неуравновешенные.
He thinks that he can win the war by just throwing more grinder meat into the front lines.
Все, издохники.
We found some posts by newly recruited soldiers.
29-го у нас отправка предстоит в Херсон. Подготовки перед отправкой в зону боевых действий не будет.
They can face a prosecution in case they will be catched with the smartphone. But at the same time, there is much less discipline. So they are using their smartphones more often. Their motivation is exactly the same as ours, to share the brightest moments of their life. And a lot of them trying to complain.
Предупредили, что будут условия еще хуже.
Что мы будем тут делать, хуй просышь.
My name is Mark Rutov, and I'm an investigative journalist currently covering the Russian-Ukrainian war. So open source intelligence is the source which everyone can find. You find out not only the soldier, you starting to investigate who is he, where did he came from, what is his unit, where does he serve. We can retrieve a lot of information about how the war is going. We found one photo posted by a soldier from so-called Donetsk People Republic. He is sitting on his BM-22 Grad rocket system, and he forgot to turn off the geolocation. So we found out his position on the map. It's a position in the middle of the field near Kherson region. And by searching nearby images, we found pictures of other Russian soldiers who posted from that area. For example, we found the soldier's photo in the office, and it appeared to be the office of the local agriculture company. Russia seized a lot of Ukrainian agricultural assets.
These new satellite images show what appear to be the ramping up of theft by Russia of Ukrainian grain.
They do not only steal the grain and export it to other countries, but they also put their hands on the infrastructural facilities. We even found a soldier who posed from the local family winery, where it seems that he and his friends, they have a firing position there. Then we tried to look at other nearby photos. We tried to contact the owner of the winery to figure out if he knows that Russians using his winery and his hotel as a place to stay.
Russian President Vladimir Putin just escalated his invasion of Ukraine,
calling up hundreds of thousands of reservists.
Рот закройте себя, ведите достойно. Что вы орете все?
You probably have seen a lot of videos from so-called gathering points. It's usually some large facilities like sport halls where they gather all these mobilized before they and conditions how they keep them open.
Автобус уехал, никто никому не нужен. Как стадо баранов загнали.
There was a video of Russian mobilized people who were just dropped off the bus in the middle of nowhere in the snow field, and nobody waited for them. They were freezing. It was easy to geolocate because there was comment section exactly after this video where people, mostly their relatives and wives, discussed the situation. We were able to retrieve from there an approximate area where it was seen. And after that, we started to look at satellite images, started to search possible which are positioned nearby. And that's how we were able to geolocate the exact precise point where this video was filmed.
The problems with the tank, as I mentioned in the story, are as tactical as they are technical.
We are able to figure out that the losses of Russian equipment are huge, and they cannot replace this equipment with the similar one.
Это пацанам-танкистам такую шляпу выдали.
And we tracked how Russia moving tanks, howitzers, and other stuff to Ukraine. And now we see that they're unpacking all Soviet reserves, and they're bringing in tanks like from 1960s. from Cold War era tanks. Here we found a photo of a tank. It was very easy to geolocate the photo because there are a lot of landmarks on it. This photo was taken at the railway station in Miller. This is a T-62M tank, very old tank, essentially.
Fears of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, and now we're learning that Vladimir Putin has 110,000 troops amassed on the border.
Before the war, because we followed the Russian military build-up very closely. We knew for 99% already in December and November that the war will break out. We tracked the social media accounts of Russian soldiers who were sent to Belarus. Relatives of those soldiers started to discuss on social media. They were told that they are going to military exercises, nothing new. But when we started to follow them and reach out to them, we discovered that a lot of people actually already know from their commanders that they are going to Ukraine. When we don't hide that we are journalists, they are very often quite open and ready and tell you a lot of things. They're very frustrated actually with what's happening.
Самые дешевые прокладки плюс самые дешевые тампоны. Пулевое ранение прям туда вводите и все, он начинает разбухать и придавливает стенки.
Of course your morale will be very low, especially when you find yourself in the conditions which are totally different from what you've been promised.
Люди болеют, пневмония, заболевания, у всех температура.
Палатки нам нихуя не дают, жили в землянках.
Неделю мы прожили в скотских условиях. Абсолютно скотских.
One thing when you are in your home city and if you say something, the police will come after you. But when you are sitting in the dirty trench and you can die at every next second, maybe you're feeling a little bit more free.
We gotta start studying. One of the guys I'm interested in the most is this dude. Alright, so what am I watching here, for those who are wondering? Well, what I'm watching is, I'm studying up Magi Felix. One of the champions I want to pick up next season is, I wanna have Karma as a higher level pick. I'm intrigued by the pick, and I want to know more about it. And I've seen Magi Felix dominating with it this year. And having a really good result with it, and it's pissed me off to the point of where I want to look at it. And I also wanted to look at Zillion as well. I wanted to take the different approach because Twisted Fate kind of died, I think, in Solo 2. Basically, studying, and I'm allowing you guys on my study journey. So the first thing we're gonna look at, we're gonna take a look at his runes, trying to figure out why he's doing what he's doing. So he's going Airy, he's going Mana Flow, he's going Scorch, he's going Transcendence. Ingenious Hunter, and then he's going Cheap Shot as well. So he's pretty much guaranteed to stack up Ingenious Hunter as a mage. He's playing like a mid support type of vibe. So yeah, This is the champion I'm interested in. I already looked at Seraphine. I'm going to be studying Cupic later because I want to pick up Seraphine for bot lane along with my Ezreal pick. I want to have an AP pick and Ezreal. This is like my go-tos. And I want to have Karma as like my new mid. I'm intrigued by the pick. There's a lot of reasons that I'm intrigued by the pick. The first one is the prio that it gives. You know, it's a jungler's world out there. And Karma's looking pretty good. Now top lane, I've got top lane covered. I play fucking Fiora and Tryndamere. Next year, top lane's gonna be open. So I'm gonna be spending a lot of time in top lane too, probably next year. Exploring that a bit more. But for now, looking at mid. Oh yeah, mid Tryndamere is definitely one of my go-tos. I'm still gonna play it, but I want to incorporate Karma more in games and higher, like I said, higher elo. So right away, autoing pretty fast, pushing right up. Not wasting any time. First 2-wave shove. He apparently has no problem parking the wave in front of Akali Tower. Really beefy trade by Akali. Doesn't seem to care though. Is still just blasting this dude with harass. W's off of. Basically, he's Wing off of CD into the Akali. I don't think he's even placed a ward. Watch that again. Standing dead center in the lane. As soon as the gank comes, skiing away. Now, what I would imagine, he's able to pop bone plating too. That bone plating take by Akali is pretty funny too, considering that you wouldn't think bone plating would really have that much value in a lane versus Karma. You would also figure that Akali probably would have taken something more like Electrocute. But I guess maybe she thought she could potentially face Yone. Did she know this was coming? She thought it was Yone. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Swap kind of caught her off guard. You could see that the Akali went armor instead of MR. Ooh. The level up is gross in that spot. I think the kill actually does go through, if not for the level up. Back to Akali down, takes some resets. Dark Seal, Lucid Boots. 3/4 mana, back to lane. I mean, he has been, for the 6.5 minutes that I've been seeing, he has been in this guy's face the entire lane phase. Obviously not giving a fuck about Akali's all-in. Doesn't care. Starting to look to push Rome. Or push ward. this play to be interesting. Very confident. He's very confident here that he wins this if he roots up the Ashe, which I think is interesting. Not a bad trade. So first off, what I'm thinking here, pretty simple stuff. For Magi Felix, it looks like
getting started here, I want to talk about something sort of personal. For the past couple of years, not so much this year maybe, but more so 2021 and before, I've had this nagging voice in my mind saying that what I do doesn't really have impact. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the support of a pretty large community that made it all possible, but in between my ranting about microtransactions in video games that inevitably happen regardless of what I say, or talking about how bad a particular TV show is, it felt like I was failing to do anything of consequence. I wanted to do something that mattered. I wanted to have an impact, and as I began to look for that on a more frequent basis, I ran into something rather unexpected. Lately, I've tackled a couple of very difficult topics. First was underage exploitation on TikTok, and second was a rise in damaging self-harm as a result of Amazon's shopping algorithm. These two videos were very difficult for me to make, because they dealt with subject matter that is just about as far away as one can possibly get from harmless video game commentary, but the perceived impact of these videos was far more important than almost any other content I had previously made. These topics are not easy to explore. I did my best to develop a careful methodology to be diligent, responsible, and ethical in the process, but even with extreme care on a fundamental level, the content was really very draining. I began to feel that previously desired sense of impact or importance, I truly did, while simultaneously thinking about how much easier and more peaceful it would be to just give loose commentary on current events. Having started to achieve what felt like a pressing goal for almost 2 years, I'd say, I began to realize that it came with a cost. Now, I only recently, a matter of days ago actually, changed the name of the channel officially to reflect this new mission. That change will remain, and I stand by it, but I've also realized that I will need to be extremely conscious of what I cover and how, not just for the purpose of treating sensitive topics with proper respect, but also for my own psychological well-being. A good portion of the content I produce now comes from sources. These sources are either whistleblowers inside major companies like Quantic Lab in Romania, concerned citizens trying to expose corruption and fraud like Celsius Network, or even just people who happen to stumble on something they don't fully understand, but a common thread that runs between all of them is that the subject matter is mentally taxing. Workplace abuse, malpractice, fraud, exploitation, these things begin to feel kind of overwhelming, and as a result I want to be clear on something moving forward. Up till now I've tried to personally investigate and make videos about whatever it is people send me, if I'm at all able to do that. It's been fantastic, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world, but as I go down this road further, I'm starting to realize that it won't always be possible. This particular video comes together based on a variety of factors, but subject matter like this in the future will be something I treat with a great deal more, I guess, distance. I will happily connect people with relevant agencies, law enforcement, counseling, or otherwise when appropriate, but I'll be taking a step back from the personal aspect of investigating what they send me in some of these situations. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean I'm done with it completely, not by a long shot. It just means that certain stories will need to be treated somewhat differently. High-impact video content is what I desire to make, but I need to make sure and pace myself with adequate time in between more intense topics. All of this is to say, I'm going to be taking a step back and slowing down with this type of material, because pushing too hard on this feels like a very, very bad idea. So, what is the topic, and why do I need such an enormous disclaimer right at the start? To answer that, we need context on how this happened, how it was sent to me, and what I've done about it as a result. And to give that context, we need to go back to TikTok. About a month ago, I did a video regarding underage, exploitative, or wildly inappropriate content on TikTok Live, and that video went, I guess, semi-viral. In the aftermath, I had dozens, possibly hundreds of parents contact me about what they had done in response to that video. Much of it very positive and heartwarming, but I also received a message from someone named Matthew, who is, in his own words, a task force officer at the FBI. It turns out there is a comprehensive goal at certain levels of law enforcement to raise awareness and get children off of the TikTok platform while prosecuting the worst offenders who engage with them in a supremely negative way. Keep in mind, this video pertained to underage users performing explicit acts on TikTok Live for money from older users. What's more, this effort is being pushed at both a state and federal level, leading to a request by Matthew that I share my findings and methodology for the research. I don't know if I was all that helpful, to be honest, given how I had approached the topic, and seeing as I didn't have any information on money trails, transactions, or many of the actual users involved, but the most important thing for today is that I had established a line of communication with someone specifically involved with protection of minors online. That's pillar number one, but without pillar number two, we wouldn't be here today. Pillar number two is very straightforward. As a result of the video on TikTok Live, a source reached out to me who felt defeated on a particular subject and wanted to see action be taken. This source saw the video, decided to contact me in the hope I could do something about it, and expressed that they had repeatedly tried to report this material to Google with no results to speak of. Having agreed to look at this, I began to do so, following the links and threads that they had given me, and what I found was a horrifying underbelly of Google Photos or Google Albums that makes me, with as much sincerity as I can possibly muster or convey here, sick to my very soul. Now, before saying precisely what, I want to once again reiterate something from my prior coverage of TikTok. I am not here to disturb anyone. I will make every effort to compose my words in such a way where the critical information and core principles are conveyed with no shocking or disturbing content whatsoever in this video itself. I need to be very conscious of YouTube's community guidelines here, and I will adhere to them. But with that in mind, there is one more thing to clarify. Due to the nature of the subject matter, I believe it is absolutely essential that I detail to you, the audience, all of you, what I have done in response to this topic before actually discussing what it is. To keep things short and simple, I have done the following. I've reached out to a lawyer in order to have some sound advice on how to proceed with anything that follows the publication of this video, submitted an official cyber tip report with all essential information to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, given a detailed report of all relevant material to Matthew at the FBI, who is now moving the information to an ICAC team, ICAC standing for Internet Crimes Against Children, and taken a couple of other secondary steps to make sure that the information is now properly acted upon by someone qualified. Furthermore, I have downloaded nothing and immediately cut recording when encountering something I believe to be illegal, and if I can think of any other necessary precautions to take, I will do so. Including any of the links relevant to this in the description or the visual footage itself would immediately result in a community guideline strike on YouTube, so none will be shown, but understanding that, I want to be completely transparent with not only what this is, how I handled it, and why, but with what I have done on the back end to make sure that this is not just a throwaway YouTube video, but a move to legitimately shut down this ring. With all of that said, and yes, I know it's a lot, here's the story. I believe Google Photos is being used by an enormous ring of criminals to disperse a wide range of assorted illegal material, as well as underage exploitative content. And while my source claims to have reported more of these albums than they can possibly count over an extended period of time, nothing has seemingly ever been done about it. I was given a link to an aggregate website. This website is extremely clear on every single page, I might add, that they do not own the links, they only share them. But that's just the beginning. These links, hundreds and hundreds of them, direct to a website called Linkvertise when you click them. They all are explicit thumbnails and material, but when you click them, they go to Linkvertise, which is a service by which users can earn money based on every single click or visitor to the link that they create. Additionally, Linkvertise bars access to these links either behind a paywall or a series of requirements. For example, one requirement to look at the link for free is to simply browse other articles on the website. This presumably generates money through advertising or paid click-through deals. But another activity is to download specific pieces of software. One example would be a new web browser or some sort of antivirus program, ironically. These downloads often contain malware. Researching Linkvertise will showcase that the website is used in an incredibly large way for illegal activity or dispersing harmful programs. I won't say that the service itself is intended for such uses, but the first link in the chain here is a website trying to make you install malware that your antivirus will likely flag as such. After getting through this initial barrier, there are a multitude of ways to do that, including Chrome or Firefox extensions. You'll find a link that redirects to a Google Photos album. That's the most common, I believe, also corroborated by my source. These albums contain adult material, but some of them appear to contain underage, highly illegal content. This is where the network truly begins because these albums contain a feed of comments or activity. Some of them are thousands of messages long, and littered across these comments are things like this. Conteúdo pesado translates to heavy content, and with the parentheses, we can see that there is a specific emphasis on C and P. Without beating around the bush here, that is coded language signifying that what is in those linked files is underage material. To drive the point home even further, there are sometimes emojis that showcase the no sign over the number 18. One way to interpret this would be that they are saying users under 18 are not allowed here, but another way to see that is an indication that the files contained inside do not depict users above the age of 18. Confirming this, as if it needed to be confirmed given the context at all, these links redirect to a multitude of collections, Google photo albums, or file sharing platforms, some of which display a message. This comes from file sharing website Mega, reading, quote, "This folder or file was reported to contain objectionable content such as child exploitation material, violent extremism, or bestiality. The link creator's account has been closed and their full details, including IP address, have been provided to the authorities," end quote. I am not qualified, equipped, nor interested in exploring this web of content further, but in mere minutes, it became clear that there is a vast network of illegal content here that spans thousands, possibly tens of thousands of users, and contains the following. Adult content posted directly as revenge, likely stolen from a victim's cell phone. Underage content inside albums with titles like Keep an Open Mind, as well as content taken from leaks, hacks, or data breaches on other websites, with no pretense whatsoever made that this content is anything other than highly illegal. What's more, it seems like every single one of the Google photo albums, of which there are hundreds, I have no idea what the rest contain beyond a few, and also what my source initially gave me. I only pray that the authorities are able to track down everyone involved here. Every single one of the Google photo albums, it seems, has between a few dozen and many hundreds of logged in users, clearly listed at the top, often with their full names right on the account. These albums will, in turn, have hundreds, even thousands of comments directing to further off-platform files hosted inside either Google Albums or websites like Dropbox and Mega, often containing illegal content. It's like standing on the deck of a ship in an ocean of putrid filth, stretching as far as your eyes can see in every direction, and yet the only platform where it seems significant action has been taken at all is Mega. Simply scrolling the activity feed or the comment section on what seems like any of the Google albums will see thousands of links with very clear titles. Conteúdo proibido, or forbidden content. Conteúdo potente, similar meaning, and once again with parentheticals, CP, leading to websites such as Link Center, with the final portion of the URL simply reading, right there, CP, clear as day. The initial aggregate website has everything from Snapchat albums to selfies to content scraped from Reddit and beyond. I cannot stomach it, I cannot investigate further or give any more details. All of this has been reported, as per my source, many times on many albums directly to Google themselves, and seemingly zero action has been taken. Thousands of people are just openly listed in these communities. I'm sure not all of them are objectionable, right? Some of them are going to be consenting adults or what have you, but there are thousands or hundreds of these different albums and many thousands of people involved. The content dates back over 20 years in some of them, according to the direct information at the top. And without sounding overly dramatic here, this appears to be a global network of criminal activity, with half the people involved just openly browsing it, posting, downloading, surfing, or managing albums from their very own Google account. The call to action is simple. Authorities can handle the main response, of course, but it very much seems to me that Google needs to devote more resources to moderating, policing, and banning this kind of network. As I stated earlier, I'll be taking a step back from this kind of topic in the future, giving myself time for things like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings, or even lighthearted content in between. I believe that this has been handled responsibly. That's my opinion on the matter, but as a series of connections and events lead me to what feel like increasingly serious or dangerous topics every day, I need to be careful and slow down. In the end, this is a disgusting secret inside Google Photos, and I sincerely hope it can be solved. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.
Yo, what up, man? How you doing?
Yo, what's up? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, same. Yo, what up, man? How you doing?
Yo, what's up? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, same. Let me pause my music here. I felt like I should chat with you anyways because I'm just playing against bots right now, and I'm not talking like, I'm talking like leveling.
So you're leveling a Korean account?
Yeah. Because I'm gonna do, when I'm not coaching, I'm gonna do a climb.
That's sick. Okay. I'm excited about that one. I think now's the perfect chance to kind of take this popularity, newfound popularity in the mainstream. Yeah. I thought it was a very interesting situation, this whole shebang that happened with you. It's a weird case where there's so many aspects of it, and I kind of wanted to gaze on what your opinion is on all this thing, like how it started, where it went, and like how much of this would be constituted as like this, just Twitter being like, the Twitter just being Twitter, like the snowball of opinion, like this mob mentality idea.
So
and how much is genuine criticism? So
yeah, so no, it's good. Basically where it started was, and I'm trying to make it a point to not highlight content creators specifically because I feel like that's kind of what they want right now. Like I don't want to really give them too much air, but basically it started with a content creator accusing me of scamming somebody because they missed the session, right? So they had a session booked, they missed it.
Okay.
And it says on my site, like, if you miss it, I'm not refunding you. Like, I can just choose to not refund you. Like, you agree to this, right? There's like a checkbox. And the guy missed the session and I didn't refund him. And then months later, the guy DMs me.
The whole thing started, yeah?
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
and
I did a bit of research, like trying to figure out how far back this goes, like when it got to mainstream, yeah.
Right. So essentially, what happened was, I was just like, well, I'm not refunding him because, you know, if I refund this guy, then it sets a precedent, right? Any content creator could then go and bash you on social media, right? And then now you are pressured to just refund people just because, right? So I'm not, it's like I don't negotiate with terrorists type of situation.
Yeah, taking a stand on something, hard stance, so you're immovable on that front. Yeah.
Right. So basically, it gets to the point where if I don't say like no, right, then I could just be walked over. And I mean, it's in any industry. Like if you don't show up for your fucking appointment, like people don't have to give you any money back. Like you're not. People get it confused. Right? They think, obviously, yes, I am sitting at my computer. And yes, if the guy doesn't show up, I could just play the game. What if my day doesn't revolve around the game? Like I told my wife, like, hey, we can't hang out today. I can't go to this thing today because I have a coaching at this time and you don't show up for the coaching. Well, I don't get like, just because that time, like to somebody who doesn't take their profession seriously, that time doesn't look that valuable to them. Right? But to me, it is, because I would have probably filled that slot with something else. I have other things I can do to make money. Like I'm working with, pretty soon I'm going to announce I'm working with a new app. Before that, I was doing the bootcamp stuff. I managed 3 channels. Like I could be streaming the game myself. There's just so many different things that I could have been doing. Right? It isn't just as simple as like, oh, you're at your computer anyway, so.
Yeah, like that's just a standard business decision. You can have your own idea of how to do it.
Right. You can do 50%. You can, right.
Like that. Yeah, 50%. I didn't think of that as a big deal when I saw it, but I guess that's how it whole started. Like just got onto that and it just fanned out of there.
Right. Yeah, and I was at the mindset of just like, well, this is so obvious. That's what I keep saying. I was like, well, this is so obvious jealousy, you know, just being mad that you didn't monetize your shit or whatever. And I felt like anybody with a half a brain could see it for what it was.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And I hope you don't mind. I might pry a little bit here and there, and I might take some hard stances from Twitter and like give these accusations and stuff.
Right.
Because I asked people to give me some questions and stuff. So we're gonna just to get like the defense out of there and those like certain points and stuff. So
right.
We can discuss stuff. Yeah, first and most important thing that I thought, what is your favorite niche coaching meme?
Oh, my favorite niche coaching meme?
Yeah.
I think the funniest ones to me like definitely the Caedrel one was pretty funny, I thought. I also, the one that had me Karis my one, it was like Kane starts Raptors or whatever. That's the one that's when I first saw it. And that's when it legitimately made me laugh. I was like, oh, that's what people are doing now. Okay.
Yeah, well, one morning I just woke up and the entire Twitter just needs me. It's fucking hilarious. So, okay. Second thing is the $350 for the pricing.
Right.
So how can we explain that? Let's explain to the
So yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. So all that happens is I used to do $20 replay reviews, like back in the day.
Yeah, everyone did, yeah.
Right, and so I used to do that, and then once I figured out that live coaching was kind of interesting, and it showcased, basically live coaching gets a lot of flack. I noticed that it gets a lot of flack from Twitter as well, because they go, well, VOD reviews are better, and it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily always true. I think both have their spot. Like, it's a tool, right? And I've specialized in live coaching. For me, live coaching was when I started doing those videos, that's when things really blew up, because people really liked the decision making, like, in the position of the client, right? And being able to direct where the game goes and show, like, no, you need to do this right now. And I think most people that watch those live coachings, they see the decisions in real time and they go, oh, this guy knows what he should be doing, right? And I think the proof was kind of in the pudding there, is that most clients would have lost if I wasn't in their ear, and then that kind of just snowballed itself. And then more people just wanted to be on YouTube and prove, like, okay, I can follow instructions, right? Like, I can do what this guy needs me to do, and hopefully learn something in the process. And so that's when I made the coaching site, and then that's when everything started blowing up, because more and more people wanted in. And 100, at first I was like, oh, I love this, right? I was like, I get to coach all the time. This is great. I told Mary, I was like, this is dope. I'm doing this all day. And then when I actually, right. Well, it's not, well, it was like, I had 6 slots or 5 slots or something like that. And they were all like 100. And I just literally, there was no stopping. Like, imagine, and the comparison I use is like, okay, imagine you own a gym, right? You're the only gym in the world. You can only work with one person at a time. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, you could raise the price theoretically as high as you wanted, because until they stop coming in, you could just raise it, because you're the only gym. So as far as like content for newbies, sorry if I cut out, I'm like leaving league. As far as content for newbies goes, right, I was like the biggest one, the one that anybody that goes to, I still am. Like, if you type in League of Legends coaching, like, I'm gonna show up everywhere, right? And
yeah,
that
you're indexed pretty well on both Google and the
right.
website and YouTube.
Yeah, so like, I'm gonna show up every time. So basically what happened was the prices got set pretty high, and where they are right now is they're probably just not gonna come down. I'm probably just gonna leave them here. And you know, if I'm being just direct and like brutally honest, like, my life's in the military, like, I'm good. Like, I don't have to move. I don't have to move my prices at all. I don't have to do anything other than what I'm doing, which is just make good content. If I'm not coaching, then I could be doing, like, right now, like, I could be chatting with you. I could be leveling. I have other projects going on. So, I mean, that's the summary of how it got to this point. So it's a combination of, you know, right place, right time. I'd like to, you know, despite what my haters say, I'd like to think that I'm pretty good at, I saw your stream before we got in the call, actually. You said packaging it, right? Complicated game and packaging it down. Let me give you a cool example of something that happened to me growing up. I was at a party. Everybody was playing Halo. I was pretty good at Halo. I used to go to tournaments for Halo, right? Well, I was at this party. There was this guy who was not good at Halo. Okay, he was okay, right? So these girls asked to play Halo, and they asked me, you know, how do you play? And I nerded out on them, right? I started like over talking. Yes, this is a true story. This guy was like this big bald dude. Yeah, this guy was like a bald. This kind of shaped my understanding of like how to coach. Actually, this small interaction. This dude was a big buff, like not buff, but he was just like a stocky. You know those like stocky dudes that are just like, you know, that if they just like, if they pushed you, you would just go flying somewhere. He was this big bald dude with glasses, right? And he was from Brooklyn, and I'm talking too much. And he goes, Mark, shut up. And he like grabs the controller and he holds it at the girls and he's like, listen. And you know how the left joystick and the right joystick are, right? For shooters by default, right? He points the left joystick and he goes, hey, yo, this is your feet. And he points to the right joystick and he goes, this is your eyes. Play the fucking game. And he like hands him the controller. And I'm just like, that was like the most quick and efficient. It's like, that's the most quick and efficient explanation of playing a shooter. I could have spent years trying to come up with a simple way to say that. Right? And I probably would have never gotten to it. Right. So I was like, oh shit, this guy's a fucking genius. And so I realized that the real way to connect with people is to not flood them with a bunch of meaningless shit. Right? Just don't give them meaningless shit. They're gonna figure it out on their own and they're gonna uncover it on their own. And really, if I'm being completely honest, of all the times that I've ever played high elo, there's so many little details that I really don't care. And I feel like most players just get into word salad. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. You gotta find the proper resolution at which you're gonna showcase the game to the students.
Right.
You need to know, like, what their understanding should be. And, like, you have probably most experience with that particular student, so you would probably be the best person to decide that. I mean, you're trained for that, essentially.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it started.
It's justified by the point.
Well, I personally have said countless times on videos, I've said I would not pay for my own coaching.
Okay.
So, like, personally, I've played games my whole life. So to me, probably not worth it. Right? Now, if I was somebody who was... I always think about the people that don't have games growing up or, like, just got a computer or, you know, just... things like that where it's like this game is just overwhelming to them. Like maybe it is worth it to them. Like who the fuck am I to say whether or not it's worth it to the individual themselves? And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like personally I don't give a fuck what people do with their money. If I believed everything that everybody said about like, oh, niece, you're not good enough, or this service isn't worth it. Like, if I believe that, then I wouldn't have a job. So that's not really how I go about my day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just go by... Right, well, it's that, and it's just I always say the community sets the prices. If there wasn't that many people that wanted it, then I wouldn't be here. Like, it's just it's an obvious conclusion when you really drill down into it. Why am I here, then?
And the second part would be, what would be the upper limit of pricing? If you assume that unlimited demand, you have people lining up for it.
There's no... Dude, I'm trying to make money. Like, I'm not shy about it. Like, no, this isn't... Okay, let's clear some other things up. Like, first of all, I obviously love talking about video games all day, right? It's literally what I do all day. So... I have a love for this stuff. If anybody thinks that I got into this business being like, oh yeah, I can't wait to pay off my homes already, right? Or like, oh, I can't wait to... Right, like, they'd be an idiot. Like, I would have been happy originally just doing this for... There's so many streamers that are living like I would have been happy with, if that makes sense. Like, the way that I'm talking through it. Right? Like, I could clearly see that they're just breaking even. I could see it. It's like, I can see... I know their sub counts. I know, you know, I know how many viewers they're getting. I look at their YouTube channel and I see the sponsorships. I'm not stupid. Like, I've been here for a long time. Like, I could see myself back then being happy with that. Well, now I'm here. Clearly, there's more to this than meets the eye. I'm not going to sit here and fucking pretend like, oh, niece, if you could raise the price to 500, would you do it or would you not do it to be nice? Like, no, like, I'm trying to make money. The fuck, that's why we're in this business. Like, who knows? Like, tomorrow I could, the CEO of Riot Games could be found to have diddled a bunch of kids, and then the whole stock price of League of Legends goes down and goes under or something. You know what I mean? And then we don't have jobs. Like, but you know what I mean?
There's a chance for that. Yeah.
I'd like to think that you could very clearly see people go, oh, niece yells at clients during coachings. Yeah, man, because I'm competitive. What the fuck? Like, of course, I want the client to do well. I mean, I want him to see, like, you got to put effort in on things. It doesn't just, nothing just falls in your lap, right? Like, do you really think that if I was just getting a paycheck and, like, fucking sitting there, like, do you really think that, like, I wouldn't be upset at the client or at the way that they're taking the coaching or whatever? Like, if I didn't care? Like, of course I care. But at the same time, it's not, I'm not fucking running a charity either.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. I had people like doing devil's advocate earlier in my chat and talking about what would you like, what would be like an immoral pricing for coaching or something like that. And I had a similar response there because you have basically no prior history of advertising or like pushing yourself as a character for like some sort of socialist cause or like trying to spread this stuff. So yeah, like you can't really pull off a judgment of character based on just business. Right.
I mean, it's just silly. It's fucking stupid.
What do you think the validity is of dissecting coaching? Like, let's say you have thousands of coaches publicly online.
Oh yeah.
What do you think the value of dissecting? How valuable is that?
Oh, it's awful. It's awful for the scene. Listen, let's put it like this. I'm not always going to be the #1 coach forever and ever, right? I'm going to try to be for as long as I can. But what I'm saying is that eventually someone else is going to be where I am in some other space, right? And this isn't the last of video game coaches costing a lot. I won't be the last, right? So do we really want to set a precedent where every coach pulls up somebody's VODs and starts shitting on the coach with the experience with the client with like small snippets and not being right, like basically being disingenuous in order to tear somebody's credibility and reputation down? Is that really where you want to go? Because if that's where people want to go, that's fine, right? If that's where the culture is going to go, I would expect nothing less from League of Legends or video gamers in general, right? But I would encourage anybody, right? I would think that any coach that's truly, and I'm not saying a coach like, oh, take a niece highlight and try to sound smarter than me, right? I'm talking any legitimate aspiring coach watching these interactions. Want them to think long and hard about whether they're just being silent and complicit with this type of stuff, or if they're like actively being like, no, this person's a fucking asshole and this is stupid. Because what's going to happen is eventually someone else will be here and they're going to have their shit nitpicked. If you make a body of work for years, eventually you'll be in my position where you have people go back 3 months ago, right? And they'll grab something that you did or something that you said and they'll basically contrarian it, right? You know, like, listen, I'm gonna ask you a question. You know for a fact, this is, if you play mid right now and you went through a VOD of my games, right? You know that you could say damn near anything to try to discredit me, and you could make a pretty good argument for it.
For sure, yeah.
Right.
It would barely dissect and then find minor mistakes here and there.
Right, like, you could find anything. You'd be like, oh, he should have worded. He should have worded here, obviously. Right, obviously he should have had the client word up here, because
I think whole this situation could it runs the risk of producing an extremely toxic environment where coaching is being kept. People will go extremely private. Nobody will publish anything online.
Right.
Of fear of criticism from other coaches.
Right.
Crossfire, this all-out warfare between coaches could be very detrimental for the learning in the community. So yeah, dissecting minor parts like out of coaching is just pretty good. It could like someone like a coach.
Right, they could say, oh, niece yells a lot. Right. Right.
Playing and you're allowing him to make so many shit plays without correction.
Right.
You can criticize approaches like that, but the individual scenarios like that, it has to be something really, really bad, in my opinion, for it to be criticized.
Right, and it's also like art. Right, you're not gonna pull up someone's painting and be like, this guy's a shit artist. Like that's how.
Especially like you're gonna pull out like one corner of the painting.
That's it exactly, because it's an hour and a half coaching or